Okay. Hi,
Hi,
everyone.
we
We are
are
Don't
Don't
Mess
Mess
with
with
the
the
Mommas,
Mamas.
Mommas, with our
Motto
motto,
is
You
you are
are
the
the
protagonist
protagonist
of
of
your
your
life,
life,
not
not
the
the
victim
victim
of
of
your
your destiny.
destiny.
And take it away, Carla. What is this episode
This
we're
is
doing?
this is our 53rd episode, and we are so blessed to have Ann Fleischer, one of my friends who I met on Meetup, a poetry meetup, and she's such a good writer. I mean, just a good writer. I mean, very descriptive. So, with that, I'm gonna ask you some questions, Anne. I understand that you were raised with parents who were deaf, and what was that growing up? How was that growing up, in your opinion? How did it shape your life?
And by the way, the title of this episode is,
Oh, communication is the God of the universe. We
which
just
is
got
Anne's words, which is Anne's own words, which is great.
Mhm,
Sorry.
Go ahead. Tell us about your upbringing.
I think, like most children, whatever you are born into is just the air you breathe, and you almost don't know any different, and you don't really think about it. But then as you get a little older and you look back on it, and that's the best I can do is to do a little thinking in that backwards way. And I think the biggest thing for me was that it made it made me realize that when people are communicating and they think they are, but they're not. They're so sure that what they've said or gotten across, whether it's verbally or some other way, is what the other person is receiving. And we all know that that's not the case at all. But it's one thing, I think, to know that as you get older. It's another thing, I think, to be steeped in it from your first day you were born. And I think that's what it was for me. So that by the time I have any awareness of the world at all, and myself as a separate person or anything, that was normal to me, is that what people are getting across sometimes is indeed what the other person is going to receive, just as often, maybe even more often, is not what the other person is going to receive. And then after that, it's whatever. You can either think it's your responsibility to do something about it or not. You can just watch it. You can whatever you want after that. But that's the basic starting point. And I think that was really the biggest takeaway from having been raised as a hearing person, but with deaf parents, I think.
Mhm. Well, Lena had some question
Yeah,
too.
yeah. I love that, and I think Anne, I shared with you that I went to a day camp when I was 11 years old, and I befriended a deaf person and a blind and deaf person, and goodness knows the person who was deaf was trying to teach me sign language, and she kept on calling me stupid because I had the hardest time learning it. So, applause to I think we should all learn sign language because it's a beautiful language, beautiful way of
It
expressing
is.
self. So you talking about expression, you have a beautiful way of expressing your relationship to reading. Can you share some of your feelings and experiences?
I think I was given that some thought as well. I think it was my way of trying to make sense of what I saw around me,
Mm.
and almost in a fearful way. And like I had said when we talked before, I didn't happen to be a fearful or skittish kind of kid for whatever reason. I was just sort of average, I think, on that. So it wasn't from a place of fear. It was really more from a place of just trying to understand what the heck is going on around me, which I
Mm.
think all little kids have anyway, but I think I extra had it because of what we were just talking about a moment ago. So what reading, which later morphed into writing, did for me was that it was my way of understanding what was going on around me in the smallest way, even in the smallest way. It didn't have to be anything obvious you could point to and say, oh, I read 1 + 2 = 3, and now I know 1 + 2 = 3. It wasn't anything as concrete as that. Sometimes it was, but it would be really subtle. And then the other thing was it it you live through it as you read, you live through it, and then you don't necessarily have to do or be that.
Mm.
And I think that was something that, because I read from a really early age, I don't know how I learned to read. I'm sure I'm like a lot of kids, don't remember being taught to read. And clearly, I must have been taught to read and all that. But I don't remember not being able to read. So I was reading everything all the time, whatever was lying around. And of course, there were times I didn't exactly know what I was looking at. Some repair manual for a washing machine or something. And I go, whatever, but I'm still reading it. But you still absorb so much from it. And I think it was my way of making sense of the world and also not having to do or be everything to learn it. You can see something, especially because you get older, preteen or teenage, it becomes even more obvious that you're reading, I don't know, Anna Karenina, but maybe you don't have to be that strange husband type of guy. You can see that's how sometimes humans are, and you really can live through it. But then you don't have to bring that into your life, and you can avoid so many pitfalls. Once I started realizing that, which I don't think I did till I was maybe an older child, then I felt like reading was like a lifeline in a
Mm.
way of not to have to make gigantic, stupid mistakes in life.
Wow.
You could just
People
read it.
never talk about that, reading being like a lifeline.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful, beautiful way of putting it and encouraging for people who really struggle wanting to read. That's
Yeah. I think maybe sometimes people, I've talked to people about this before, even not so long ago. And I think if people struggle with reading, then sometimes they think of it as this lofty thing that they should do, like I should exercise more, or I should eat healthier, or I should call my mother. And sometimes you're better at it and other times you're not so good at it, but it's something you should do because it's quote unquote good for you. And that's fine if you think that, but that's not it. That's not the value of it at all. And the value of it is what it does for you, what it gives you. And you can do this all on your own. You don't need help with trying to understand things. You can learn so much, and you don't have to make every stupid mistake. People have already written about all those, so you can just read about them.
Mhm.
And especially when you're young, I think that's helpful to know.
That's great. That's great. Wow, back to you.
Okay, all right. I wanted to know about you shared earlier about James Baldwin
Mm.
and his influence on your reading and writing, and perhaps not so many people are aware of that. Can you share with us and our listeners um, and viewers something about that?
I came to James Baldwin a little late. I read The Fire Next Time as probably maybe in my early 20s, and then nothing else. I'd never read anything else. And then I really don't remember what made me purposely pick him up to read. I think it was I kind of like to read a lot of history, and of course, all of his work in the civil rights era and so forth. And I hadn't realized that. I thought of him as a writer of fiction and essays, and I hadn't read many of them. Then, in order to read about him more, I started reading his work, and then I realized what a treasure, just a national treasure. And this is not news to anybody. Everybody knows. What I found was that the span of his mind, the scope of his mind, is what everybody knows, and that it's so big and so broad. Um, and you can just stay right there and stay lost in that, and there's enough for a whole lifetime. You'll never exhaust it. But for me, sort of as a personal thing, I found that it was like a key to a door lock, was
Mm.
that he had this vulnerability as a person and in his writing both. And um, that vulnerability wasn't there as something that he would ignore. It was something he used, and in his own personal life, as he ran his life, and in his writing, and not as a tool because he didn't need to use it. He had all the strength as a person, and he had all the strength as a writer. He didn't need to use the vulnerability in his writing and in his life as a tool. He respected it, and he used it to get at truth. He didn't need it, but he couldn't ignore it. The vulnerability was his key to get at truth. He didn't layer over it, pretend it wasn't there. He could have. He had all the skill in the world. We would have never known he did it. I wouldn't have ever known he did it. He's that good. He could have written any way he wanted and done anything he wanted, said anything he wanted, whether it was his fiction or his nonfiction. But instead, he respected his own vulnerability as a human and as a writer. And that was his key into the truth, which is all he was ever after all the time. And then that gave me the courage to do the same thing. And instead of being fearful of my own vulnerabilities, as either as a person in regular life or in writing, instead of being afraid of it and saying whatever reaction you might have shouldn't be this way, or nobody wants to hear this, or um, anything like that. It, it's just yourself trying to get at the truth. That's all it is. That's what he was always showing us. So don't be afraid of it. And don't use it like a tool, like you would like a garden rake or something. It's not that kind of a thing. But just use it as your key to get at the truth of your life and of your writing and of what you want to say and how you want to say it. So that's why he's inexhaustible. You can read everything he's ever written, and I think I have. I'm not sure by now. I think so. Like a lot of people who admire him so much, and I could just start all over again. I have a couple of times. It's not exhaustible. You can't exhaust the things he wants to say and teach us. He was truly a national treasure.
Wow. After that, everybody in the world's going to want to read James
Yeah, and so many
Baldwin.
people have,
Yeah.
and I admire them so much. And I really, the people who have written about him, have written biographies about him and so forth. I really appreciate them because look what that now gives me. I not only have his body of work to look at, which is everything, but I can read about him from some careful, considered writing, people who have given him the respect he deserves to write about his life and his writing, which helps me no end, of course, so I can read what they wrote,
Just beautiful,
you
beautifully
know.
spoken, beautifully spoken. Wow. Um, and you wrote a wonderful poem about reading, and it's just delightful. And you shared it with us earlier. So if you could share it with us again and
I'd be
with
happy
our
to.
listeners
Thank you.
and viewers, thank you so
Sure.
much.
Thank you. It's called For Your Trouble, James Baldwin. And what would you tell the young ones when they want to give up?
Mm.
Read, just read. Read paper, read screens, read the backs of old pictures, read t-shirts, read graffiti, read wattage on light bulbs. And what if they say that works for everyone but them? Just read. Read tattoos, read labels, read whiteboards in classrooms, read tickets, read dollars, read the names they give crayons. And what if they say they're scared, none of it matters? Just read. Read map legends, read song lyrics, read drill press repair guides, read postcards, read timelines, read podcast transcriptions, read street names, read Scrabble trays, read return addresses, read trailheads, read paint cans, read seed catalog grow zones, read train routes, read billboards, read vinyl LP sleeves. And how will you know if they listen? You won't. Let them be. Just read.
Thank you.
That is
Thank
so beautiful. And you speak, when I first met you, and Carla, of course, knows you much longer, and I just met you for the first time a week or so ago, and your voice is just so lovely to listen to, just
Oh,
lovely,
thank you.
so
Thank you.
so wow, wonderful.
Okay. And we have, I think, a final question, but maybe not. What message would you like to share with our youth?
I gave that some thought and I gave it thought because the first thing that came to mind is what I use. And then I thought, well, maybe give it more thought than that in case that's not it. But it is. I have this thing that I do and I call it the despondency principle. That's what I
Mm,
call it in my head. And whenever I need to think about it, I just say, yeah, the despondency principle. Um, I struggle with whether or not anything I have come up with in life and thought has any relevance to what the young people are going through today because it's so singular and I have so much respect for what they're going through now. It's very different from anything anybody in living memory has gone through. And, and this is the world they're faced with. So I hope it has any relevance. It does for me. And the despondency principle has just two laws to it at all. And that's all there is to it. It's the despondency principle with two laws. The first law is despondency only regenerates itself. Despondency only regenerates itself. And the second law is that despondency helps the bad guys. And if I can use the term bad guys, or it could be the bad thing or the bad whatever.
Mhm.
So despondency only regenerates itself. You don't get, if you become despondent, and I don't mean you have a despondent day or six, I mean you truly become a despondent person generally. You don't get anything besides despondency. You look down in your basket that you're holding up to the universe, and if you're despondent, what you have in the basket is despondency. You don't have a pack of M&Ms, you don't have anything else. That's what you get. So it's not that the horrors don't deserve the despondency. That was the hill I had to climb. I felt like saying this, that despondency only regenerates itself. Don't get despondent. What do you get? You get nothing but despondency. You don't get anything for it. Was another way of saying, oh, glass half full. Oh, keep a smile on your face all the time. And that seemed so pathetic and very much like it wasn't recognizing the difficulties we're in. But that's not it. It's simply facing facts. It's just facing fact. It's simple fact. It's a law. If you get despondent, all you get is despondent. You don't get something else. And if you can face that fact, then you're not looking at despondency as something that'll help you. You realize it's not going to help you. You don't get anything except a basket full of despondency. And then the second law, it only helps the bad guys. That's so true that it's even a strategy. We all know this already. But it does work if you want to take the power away from somebody, make them feel they don't have any, make them demoralize them, make them feel despondent. So you're giving away your own power, even just to stay alive day to day, let alone anything else. You're helping the bad guys. And it could be the bad thinking or the bad self-reflection. When I say the bad guys, I just mean that generally. So if you want to help them, become despondent. But if you don't want to help them, don't become despondent. And you can distract yourself. You can put that energy somewhere else. What's that? What's that story where it's something like, it's not your job to complete this whole task, but neither are you allowed to set it down.
Mhm.
So even if you feel like you are not helping at all, helping yourself, helping the situation or whatever, don't put the job down. You're still worth it because you're just helping the bad guys. And that's the second law. And the first law is despondency just makes more despondency. It just regenerates itself. That's all it does.
And can you just define in your words the word despondency? Because maybe some listeners, if they're younger, they may not be as familiar. So how would you define that, despondency?
Worthlessness, giving up, pointlessness,
Mhm.
like beyond ennui, like sometimes beyond cynicism. Sometimes even people, I think it's usually out of uh, a well understood sadness about it, become hardened and take an attitude and get a kind of a kick-ass attitude about it. Like, yeah, this is this bad, I'll show you. Um, I don't care about anything. There's nothing worth caring about. And
Mhm.
it's really just creating a really 4 foot thick concrete wall around your heart
Mhm.
so that you can get through this. Sometimes people just don't care about anything anymore. They don't see any point to it. And if you get that way really hard like that, then not only are you making life easier for the bad guys, and you're creating for yourself nothing but this despondency, this feeling of useless worthlessness and pointlessness, but you can't show up in the world except with that 4 foot thick concrete wall around your heart. That's the only way you can show up in the world.
Mhm.
And not only is that exhausting to carry, but so much of life is closed to you. Because if you show up as a hard ass all the time, nothing gets in. You learn from nobody. You never have the opportunity to give. You never have the opportunity to be in this world because you're so busy protecting yourself. I think instead, if you can identify the top two or three things, max, not more than that. If it's 27 things, it's too many. Like 1 to 3 maximum things that are the most important to you at all in the whole wide world, whatever they are. They could be your family, they could be a thought you have, they could be your mental health, they could be anything. And you put them behind you. It's kind of like circling the wagons. Put them behind you and protect those things. Then you can move out into the world knowing they're protected. You're never not going to pay attention to it. You're never not going to care about it. You're always going to work towards that and for it. They're protected. They're behind you. And now you can face the world and know that your most important things, those 1 or 2 things, are most important. They're protected. They're fine. Now step out into the world. And you can do it a little less hard. Don't be a fool, like stupid, but step out into the world and be a little bit vulnerable, be a little bit open, because you get so much. You get the opportunity to give, you get the opportunity to learn, and you'll do it if your most important things are protected. You won't otherwise. You'll be too scared to otherwise.
We always talk about the treasure of the heart, and that's what you're
Oh,
referring to, the treasures of
lovely.
the heart,
That's
which
lovely.
you explained beautifully.
Yeah.
Make
There was one thing that you had mentioned a little bit earlier, before we did the interview, about how, James Baldwin was talking about how you couldn't give up,
Yeah,
couldn't give up.
yeah.
And I thought that was beautiful what you had said about
He
that.
he said that particularly in reference to children. He was so um, he meant all children, all children, and he was the oldest of I think 9. I always forget. I think it was 9. He was the oldest of, and he always had tremendous sense of responsibility towards all his younger siblings, which transferred to all the young people of the world. And his whole life from fairly young, not super young, but pretty young, all the way through the rest of his life, he always, that was his focus and place where he'd be. He would just get right out into when he was a big famous guy, he'd be out in the streets talking to young people, crowds of them gathering around him, and he would just be with them and talk to them and all of that. And his whole thing was can't as in mustn't. You can't tell the children there's no hope. There's kind of a longish quote of his that I can't remember all of, but it ends with, and he's talking about cynicism and despair and how you can't become full of despair. And he says, you can't tell, he ends it with, you can't tell the children there's no hope. I always took the can't to mean mustn't, meaning you can go ahead. You can. You have every ability and right to say what you want to say. You can tell the children there's no hope if you want to. He's saying you mustn't because it's a luxury to just lay around in despair. He himself didn't feel like he had that luxury at all. That wasn't what he was here for. That's not how he wanted to run his life. And he certainly could never look children, any given child specifically or children in general, in the eye and just be despairing and all that. He would feel that was the biggest dereliction of humanity you could ever be or do. You can't, as in you mustn't, tell the children there's no hope.
That's
And I
right.
use that a lot in my own mind. I use it as a way of maintaining strength, actually.
Yes, yes, definitely,
What a
definitely.
great ending that
Um,
is. Yeah, I think that's I'm just concerned because we're on a free Zoom. I don't want to be kicked off.
okay, so I
What
guess,
is there anything else?
is there anything else you want to give to the youth?
Those are really my top things. You know, protect the things that matter to you most so that you can allow yourself to get out into the world a little more openly. And, you know, there's no reason to get despondent, but it's not because the reasons aren't there. The reasons are there. I recognize it. Anybody who's awake recognizes it. You're not wrong to see the need for despair and despondency. You're not wrong to see it. Um, you just shouldn't sacrifice your heart to it
Oh, that's
because
gorgeous.
then the bad
Yes.
guys win.
Don't sacrifice your heart.
Yeah.
Wow, you
Yeah.
are all heart, and shaped by parents who really taught you heart, in so many ways. So we are.
Well, don't
Don't
mess
mess
with
with
the
the mamas,
mamas.
MOMMAS, with our motto. You
You
are
are
the
the
protagonist
protagonist
of
of
your
your
life,
life,
not
not
the
the
victim
victim
of
of your
your destiny.
destiny.
And you can find us on all platforms. You can see us. you can hear us, please see us because Ann is quite lovely looking and
Yes.
a delight to see and hear her. And we also can be emailed on mommas, mommas .podcast@gmail.com. And Ann,
Thank you.
thank you
For coming
so much. It's really
Thank you.
wonderful. And your
and
writing is
sharing.
beautiful. Your reading is beautiful. And you are a beautiful soul.
Well,
Thank you
thank you.
so
It's
much. Thank
been
you.
delightful. Thank you for asking me.
Thank
Oh,
you.
we're so happy that you were able to do it with us. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye and enjoy Maine. Gosh,
Thank
what a
you.
Bye-bye.
great place. Whoa, she lives in Maine. Yay.
I see you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.